CSAP. My name is Nazafania Anelina, and I am an intern in the Research and Development Division at Siamio CSAP. It is my pleasure to serve as your Master of Ceremony for today's webinar. On behalf of the Southeast Asian Minister of Education Organization Regional Center for Early Childhood Care Education and Parenting, we are pleased to welcome you to today's webinar entitled Inclusive Early Childhood Education, Leaving No Child Behind. We are honored to have participants from various countries across Southeast Asia and beyond, representing government institutions, universities, development partners, civil society organizations, educators, researchers, and early childhood practitioners. Before we begin, we would like to inform you that this webinar is being recorded for documentation and educational purposes. By participating in this event, you acknowledge and consent to the recording. To ensure a smooth webinar, we kindly ask all participants to keep their microphones muted throughout the session. If you have any questions, please submit them through Zoom Q&A feature or the chat box below. Selected questions will be addressed during the discussion session. All right, without further ado, it is now my pleasure to introduce our moderator for today's webinar, Shahratun Aulia, MA. Ms. Lahaula currently serves as an R&D officer at Siamio CSAP. She recently completed her Master of Education degree at Tas Islam International Indonesia, and we are honored to have her guide in today's discussion. Ms. Lahaula, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Banazla, for your kind introduction. Can you hear my voice? Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, good afternoon, but still morning spirit, yeah. Good afternoon, distinguished speakers, esteemed guests, colleagues, and all participants. It is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to the third day of the Siamio CSAP 9th anniversary webinar series. My name is Laula Saltul Aulia, and I have the honor of serving you as moderator for today's session. Over the past 2 days, we have explored how strong policies and strategic investment can strengthen early childhood care and education across region. Today, we continue this important conversation by focusing on the theme inclusive early childhood education, leaving no child behind. Inclusive early childhood education is about ensuring that every child, regardless of their abilities, background, or circumstances, has equal opportunities to learn, participate, and thrive in supportive learning environments. Through today's webinar, we hope to gain valuable insights and practical strategies for advancing more inclusive early childhood education system across our region. We are honored to have 3 distinguished speakers who will share their expertise, research, and practical experiences on advancing inclusive early childhood education across different contexts. So for today's webinar, we are privileged to be joined by 3 distinguished speakers. Our first presentation will be delivered by Dr. Randel Di Estacio, OIC Vice President for Academic Affairs, and he also a dean of the college. He is also the dean of the College of Education at Quezon City University, Philippines. Our second presentation will be delivered by Ms. Siti Huzaimah MPD, Research and Development Officer at Siamio CSAP. And our third presentation will be delivered by Dr. Suhendri, the Deputy Director of Administration at Siamio CSAP. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to all of our distinguished speakers. We sincerely appreciate your willingness to share your knowledge and valuable experiences with us today. But before we begin, let me briefly walk you through today's program. We will first hear all presentations from our 3 distinguished speakers. Each speaker will have approximately 20 minutes for their presentation. After all presentations have concluded, we will proceed to the question and answer session. where participants are welcome to ask questions and engage in discussion. Please feel free to ask your question in either English or Bahasa Indonesia. If you already have a question in mind, you are welcome to type it in the Zoom chat at any time during the webinar. Kindly indicate which speaker your question is intended to, so we can facilitate the discussion more smoothly. I will collect the question and read them during the question and answer session. So we encourage everyone to actively participate and make the most of this opportunity to engage with our speaker. Okay, to begin today's discussion, I'm delighted to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Randel D. Estacio, currently serves as the IOC Vice President for Academic Affairs and Dean of the College of Education at Quezon City University, Philippines. As a dedicated academic and researcher, his work closely aligns with today's theme of inclusive early childhood education. His research focuses on preparing future teachers for culturally diverse classroom, strengthening teacher efficacy, and developing innovative multisensory learning approaches that promote meaningful participation for young learners. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Randel de Estacio. Dr. Estacio, the screen is yours.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, Doctor.
Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So, I would like to say that I am a former OIC Vice President for Academic Affairs because my term is already ended. So, I'm currently the Dean of the College of Education. So, the time when Dr. Adriani visited our university, I was the OIC Vice President. So, once again, good afternoon, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Magandang hapon sa ating lahat. Distinguished colleagues, educators, researchers, and partners from across Southeast Asia and beyond. It is both an honor and privilege to represent Quezon City University in the Philippines in the celebration of CIMEO CESEP 9th anniversary. Happy anniversary, CIMEO CESEP. Today, I would like to share not merely a collection of programs, but a framework that reflects our belief that inclusive early childhood education is built through meaningful partnerships among universities, communities, government agencies, families, and future educators. We call this QCU Care model. So before we talk about inclusive education, I'd like to begin with a simple question. Who is responsible for ensuring that no child is left behind? So maybe your answers, maybe you can type it on the chat box, but maybe it falls under maybe the teacher, the parents, maybe the government, or maybe the school, or perhaps our university. At Quezon City University, we have come to realize that inclusive early childhood education is not the responsibility of a single institution. It is a shared commitment where and it is a shared commitment, no, where every child thrives when families, schools, universities, communities, and government agencies work together. And these beliefs became the foundation of what we now call the QCU Care model. So if we agree that every child deserves the opportunity to learn and thrive, then the next question becomes, why must we invest in early childhood? Early childhood is more than the beginning of education. It is the foundation of human development. During these formative years, children develop the cognitive, social, emotional, and language skills that influence lifelong learning and well-being. Inclusive early childhood education ensures that every child, regardless of background or circumstance, has the opportunity to build these foundations. So when we invest in our young children, we invest in healthier communities, stronger educational systems, and more equitable societies. Across Southeast Asia, our educational system differs in structure, language, culture, and resources. Yet, despite these differences, we are united by common commitment to ensure that every child has access to quality early childhood education. And I hope you agree with me. Yet, despite these differences, however, many of our countries continue to address similar challenges like reaching children in underserved communities, supporting learners with diverse needs, strengthening teacher preparation, engaging families, and ensuring equitable opportunities for all. These shared realities remind us that inclusive early childhood education is not only a national priority, but it is a regional responsibility. At Quezon City University, we reflected on the traditional role of teacher education. Universities have long been responsible for preparing future teachers through coursework, field studies, and practicum experiences. But we believe there need to go farther. Maybe we ask ourselves, we ask ourselves, what if teacher education extended beyond the classroom? What if our students learned through meaningful engagement with children, families, communities, and local government partners? What if these experiences generated research, innovation, and sustainable partnerships that strengthen inclusive early childhood education? And those questions lead us to develop a community engaged framework that now guides many of our initiatives. Allow me to introduce the framework that brings together our university various initiatives in early childhood education. And we call this model as QCU CARE model. CARE represents four interconnected pillars. C stands for community collaboration, reminds us that universities cannot work in isolation. We collaborate with local governments, schools, national agencies, communities, and families. A stands for authentic learning. Authentic learning means our students learn by engaging with real communities through service learning, outreach, and professional practice. R for research and reflection ensures that every experience becomes an opportunity to generate knowledge, improve practice, and uniform future innovations. And finally, equity and inclusion remain at the heart of everything we do. Every initiative is designed to ensure that all children, regardless of their circumstances, have meaningful opportunities to learn, participate, and thrive. These four pillars are not separate programs. They are interconnected components of a single framework that guides how Quezon City University, especially College of Education, prepares future educators while contributing to inclusive early childhood development. At the heart of the CARE model is community collaboration. We believe that inclusive early childhood education cannot be achieved by schools alone. As saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. This is also one of the lines that our university president keeps on telling whenever she gave speeches. Universities, families, local governments, national agencies, community organizations, and early childhood centers each play an essential role in creating supportive environments where children can thrive. At Quezon City University, these collaborations are not occasional activities. Again, these are not occasional activities. They are integrated into our teacher education program and serve as authentic learning opportunities for our students. Through the CARE model, community collaboration is translated into four major initiatives. Each initiate addresses the different dimensions of inclusive early childhood education while providing authentic learning experiences for our students. So we have these four major community-based initiatives like service learning, these student supporting child development centers. We have street learning, bringing learning directly into communities. We also partnered with government agency under the Tarabasa tutoring program. And we also have a campus-based project. We called it Kinder Joy, supporting children while their parents, our employees, working. Also, some of our students who have child or children, they can bring it here in school so that they can still study. Together, they illustrate how university can extend their role beyond teacher preparation and become active partners in community development. One of the defining features of QCU Care model is service learning. Unlike traditional field experiences, service learning intentionally integrates academic learning with meaningful community engagement. Our third year and fourth year Bachelor of Early Childhood Education students are assigned to child development centers throughout Quezon City, where our university is located. There, they actively participate in classroom instruction, assist daycare workers, develop contextualized instructional materials, facilitate learning activities, and engage directly with young children. Most importantly, they reflect on this experience and transform them into research that contributes to improving early childhood education practices. So what does service learning actually look like in our CDC? Service learning is not just a volunteer work alone. It is a structured academic experience where students apply educational theories in authentic community settings. So they teach, our students share knowledge with confidence. They conduct learning activities. Our students engage, inspire, and make learning meaningful. They observe, understand children's needs. They create. They also assist and, of course, conduct research. They generate evidence for improving instruction. Service learning is aside from their coursework. Okay, so they already have their classroom practicum and field study, but this one is separated from those programs or courseworks. So through these experiences, our students learn to adapt instruction, communicate effectively with young learners, collaborate with early childhood educators, and respond to the diverse needs of children. They also begin to see themselves not only as future teachers, but as advocates for inclusive education. Service learning creates benefits that extend far beyond the university. Children receive additional learning opportunities and individualized support. Number two, daycare workers gain instructional assistance and collaborate with future educators. Number three, families observe increased engagement in their children's learning. Number four, communities build stronger partnership with the university. Finally, the university benefits by generating research and innovations that continuously improve teacher education and early childhood practice. As you can see, this kind of cycle produces potential research outputs. So the students serve, they observe, and then eventually after observing, they reflect and investigate, and eventually they publish research paper that helps improve practice. And again, they come back to child development centers to serve again, and then the cycle goes on. So community experiences become evidence-based innovation. This picture shows you the actual activities, no, service learning activities that our students do in child early child centers, or we called it daycare centers here in the Philippines. So they do storytelling, they facilitate, they also teach, no, inside the classroom. So now, moving on, aside from service learning, another activity that we are engaged with is the Tarabasa tutoring. Yeah. One example of community collaboration is our partnership with the Department of Social Welfare and Development through the Tarabasa Tutoring Program. This national initiative aims to strengthen foundational literacy among young learners while engaging higher education institutions as partner in learning recovery. Through this program, our of early childhood education students serve as tutors and youth development workers. Maybe you ask what are the tasks of these youth development workers? They teach the parents of these young kids. No, while the tutoring is ongoing, their parents are also engaged in meaningful sessions where they learn how to extend reading activities in their home. So our student also facilitate those activities or those discussions, no? Um, through these programs, Through this program, our Bachelor of Early Childhood Education students serve as tutor and youth development workers, supporting children's literacy development while gaining authentic teaching experience. Beyond improving reading skills, the program fosters leadership, empathy, communication, and civic responsibility among our future educators. While children develop literacy, our students experience authentic teaching preparation. They learn to adapt instruction for individual learners since it's tutoring, build relationship with families, collaborate with fellow tutors, and reflect on their own professional growth. These experiences strengthen not only pedagogical competence but also the values essential to inclusive education. The impact of Tarabasa extend far beyond reading instruction. Children become more engaged in learning. Parents gain greater confidence in supporting literacy at home. Our students develop professional competence and civic responsibility. Communities strengthen their culture of learning through collaborative partnership. And this is an essence of the care model, which is creating reciprocal benefits for everyone involved. So these are some pictures of our tutors doing the tutoring session. So on the left side of the screen, these are the tutoring session. Well, on the other hand, as you can see, there are parents there. Those are the session for the parents. So students who facilitate uh, those sessions called as youth development worker. And actually, they were paid by the national government. They receive amounting 15,000 pesos when they serve as tutor or youth development worker. So they can support their study as well. Okay, so learning does not stop when the school year ends, especially in Quezon City University. Through our partnership with Barangay North Fairview here in Quezon City, QCU participates in the street learning activities during summer break. Our students applied play-based and developmentally appropriate learning experiences for young children in the community. By bringing education directly to neighborhood, we help sustain children's learning while strengthening community engagement. Street learning reminds us that inclusive education is not defined by buildings. It is defined by our commitment to reach every child wherever they are. So street learning also transforms our student. Street learning is more than an outreach activity. It provides future teachers with authentic opportunities to design learning experiences, solve real educational challenges, and collaborate with families and local leaders. These experiences deepen their understanding of inclusive education and reinforce the belief that learning should be accessible, meaningful, and community-centered. Street learning demonstrates how university and communities can work together to create meaningful learning opportunities. Children continue to learn during summer. Families become active participants in education. Barangay officials strengthen their commitment to child development, and our students grow professionally and personally. So the university fulfills its mission to community engagement while generating insights that inform future programs and research. So these are some of the pictures during the street learning activity. So actually, this program is actually on its third year, while the Tarabasa tutoring program that I have mentioned a while ago, it's on fourth year of implementation. Inclusive education is not limited to outreach program. It is also requires institutions to create environments where families feel supported. So that is why we have this small space in our university, and we called it Kinderjoy. Kinderjoy, led by the QCU Gender and Development Office, our GAD office, provides a safe, nurturing, and stimulating space for the children of our employees and also our students while they fulfill their academic or professional responsibilities. Our Bachelor of Early Childhood Education students serve as facilitators on rotational basis. So I was the one who scheduled them, and then applying child-centered teaching strategies, facilitating play-based learning, and ensuring that every child enjoys a positive developmental experience. In doing so, Kinder Joy benefits both families and our future educators while demonstrating the university's commitment to equity and inclusion. Kinder Joy is more than a child care facility. It is an authentic learning environment where our students observe child development, facilitate play-based learning experiences, and apply through continuous reflection. They strengthen their pedagogical skills while developing empathy, patience, and responsiveness to children's diverse developmental needs. These experiences prepare them to become complete or competent and compassionate early childhood educators. Kinder Joy demonstrates that inclusion is not only about access to education. It is also about creating institutional systems that support children, families, and future educators. Children benefits from meaningful learning experiences. Families are better able to balance work and study responsibilities. Of course, our employee does not have any reason who will take care of the kids when no one is around, and then they make absences, no? Um, Students gain valuable professional experience, and the university strengthens its commitment to gender responsiveness and inclusive education. Together, these outcomes reinforce our beliefs that inclusive institutions are the foundation of inclusive communities. So this is the picture of our Kinderjoy. This very small space located at the lobby of our administration building. So very small space, but our employees, when they bring their kids, they leave it there, and then they can work while our students in early childhood education can take care of those kids. So across service learning that I have mentioned, that the Tarabasa tutoring program, street learning activity in Barangay North Fairview, and our Kinder Joy within the campus, one common thread emerges. A defining feature of the QCU care model is that community engagement does not end when an activity concludes. Our students and faculty engage in structured reflection, identify educational challenges, and transform these into research questions. The findings then inform new instructional strategies, strengthen community programs, and improve teacher preparation. In this way, research is not separate from practice. It grows directly from authentic experiences and continuously enhances the quality of early childhood education. So these are some of the portfolios of our students that they can use when they do reflection, no? Um, Through our community engaged initiatives, we have observed meaningful outcomes across multiple levels. Children becomes more engaged and active learners. Our students develop stronger teaching competencies and confidence. Families become more involved in children learning. Communities strengthen their partnership with the university. These experiences also generate research and innovations that continuously improve our teacher education program. These are examples of research generated through the CARE model. So rather than conducting research in isolation, our faculty and students investigate authentic issues emerging from their work with communities under areas of teaching and learning, curiosity and creativity, family engagement, teacher development, children development, and literacy. The findings are then used to improve instructional practices, strengthen extension programs, and enrich our teacher education curriculum. So this is one of some of the research output produced by our students together with faculty. So this is a published paper, Pop-Up Books as a Tool for Multisensory Learning, Improving Engagement and Short-Term Retention in Early Childhood Education, where I, together with my students, we come up with this pop-up books, and then we investigate its effect and then its influence to students' multi-sensory learning. And it was published in an Indonesian journal, Genius, Indonesian Journal of Early Childhood Education, last year, 2025. Our experience has taught us several important lessons. First, inclusive education is more effective when it is built through genuine collaboration. Second, future teachers develop more deeply through authentic engagement with children and communities. Third, research becomes more meaningful when it emerges from real educational challenges. Fourth, inclusion requires commitment not only in classroom but also within institution. And finally, sustainable partnership are essential for creating long-term impact. While every country has unique educational context, the principles of the CARE model are adaptable. Universities like ours can strengthen partnerships with local communities, integrate authentic service learning into teacher education, generate research from practice, and build inclusive institutional cultures. The specific programs may differ, but the underlying commitment remains the same: preparing educators who can respond to the diverse needs of every child. Inclusive early childhood education is not the responsibility of one institution alone. It is shared commitment among governments, communities, families, schools, and universities. As teacher educators, we have the privilege and responsibility to prepare professionals who are not only competent teachers, but also compassionate leaders, researchers, and advocates for every child. When universities embrace this role, they become powerful catalysts for educational transformation. So that ends my presentation. I'll leave you with this quote from me. No child should be left behind. Together, through collaboration, authentic learning, research, and inclusion, which we learn, no, we can ensure that every child learns, belongs, and thrives. So I would like to take this opportunity to Simeo Seseb for inviting us, QCU, to this event, to our dear University President, Dr. Teresita V. Atienza, and to Dr. Vina Adriani. Thank you so much, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Estacio, for your inspiring presentation. Because my master thesis was also about early childhood pre-service teacher, what particularly resonated with me was the care model that your university has established and your emphasis on preparing future teacher for inclusive classroom. Because when we talk about improving early childhood education, we often focus on children, teachers, curricula, learning environments. Yet today's presentation by Dr. Estacio reminds us that investing in pre-service teacher is equally important because they are the ones who will bring the principle of community collaboration, authentic learning, research and reflection, and equity and inclusion into their future classroom. Once again, thank you, Dr. Estacio,
Thank
for
you.
sharing this valuable perspective. Okay, we now move to our second presentation. So if the participants have question, you can type in the chat room, and in the end of the presentation, we will open the Q&A session. Okay, for the second presentation, it is my pleasure to introduce Ms. Siti Huzaima, MPD, who serves as a Research and Development Officer at Siameo CSEP. Holding a master's degree in education administration, she has been actively involved in research that support quality and equitable early childhood education. Most recently, her 2025 study, which was published in leading Q1 International Journal, explore how play-based learning can empower early childhood educators to foster children's spatial and numeracy reasoning, highlighting the importance of creating engaging learning experiences that enable every child to participate, learn, and thrive. Today, she will also share insights from her latest research on anti-bias education, which was recently accepted for presentation at the Pacific Early Childhood Education Research Association, or PESERA 2026 conference. Please join me in giving warm welcome to Ms. Siti Huzaima. The screen is yours.
Thank you, Ula. Good afternoon, distinguished speakers. In this room, there's Dr. Randall D. Estacio and our Deputy Director for Administration, Siameo CSEP, Mr. Suhendri, our colleagues and participants. It is a pleasure to welcome you all today. My name is Siti Huzaima, and I am representing the research team, including Dr. Hani Yulin Rasari from UPI, Vidyanita from Research Agency, and Research and Development Divisions from Siameo CSEP. Before I present our study, I would like to take a moment to extend heartfelt congratulations to Siameo CSEP on our 9th anniversary. I would like to express my sincere high appreciations to all dedicated staff of Siameo CSEP. Your hard work and dedications behind the scenes have made this webinar series possible. I wish Siameo CSEP will continue to advance quality early childhood care and education, ensuring that no child is left behind. Today, I am pleased to share our study entitled Negotiating Gender Expectations in Early Childhood Education, Parental and Teacher Perspectives in Indonesia. So why is this topic important? Early childhood is a critical period for children's development. During these early years, children begin forming ideas about themselves and about the world around them. Gender expectations are not simply something children are born with. Instead, they learn them through everyday experiences, through language, classroom routines, toys, storybooks, and interactions with adults. Parents and teachers play a very important role because they are children's first educators. Even without realizing it, adults may reinforce gender stereotypes through everyday practices. These early experiences matter because they can influence children's confidence, interests, participations, educational choices, and even future career aspirations. Therefore, understanding how gender expectations are formed is essential if we want to create more inclusive learning environment for every child. That brings us to the urgency of our research. Why is this issue so important today? The first reason is its long-term impact. The gender inequalities we see in universities, workplace, and even within families often have their roots in the message children receive during their earliest years. The second reason is that these stereotypes act as hidden barriers. Without realizing it, adults may discourage children from exploring certain interests or developing particular skills simply because of gender expectations. And finally, this is why immediate transformations is essential. If we want future generations to experience genuine equality, we need to start where those beliefs are first formed, which from early childhood educations. Our classroom should empower every child to explore their full potential rather than confining them to traditional gender roles. Although many studies have discussed gender bias in education, most of them only describe the existence of bias. Very few studies explain how gender expectations are actually constructed and reproduced in everyday interactions between adults and children. In addition, there is still limited research comparing how different sociocultural contexts influence children's experiences of gender in Indonesia. This study aims to fill those gaps by comparing 3 different regions with distinct cultural backgrounds. Our study is guided by 3 research questions. First, how do parents and teachers understand and negotiate gender expectations in early childhood? Second, how are these expectations reproduced through everyday educational practices? And the third, how do different sociocultural contexts shape children's experiences of gender? To answer these questions, we examine how gender expectations are constructed, how they are reproduced in daily life, and how local culture influences children's experiences. Our study is informed by Judith Butler's theory of gender performativity. Simply put, Butler argues that gender is not something fixed or natural. Instead, children learn what it means to be a boy or a girl through repeated everyday experiences. For example, when boys are repeatedly told not to play with dolls, or girls are repeatedly reminded to sit politely, children gradually learn what society considers appropriate behavior. Over time, this repeated message become normal and shape children's understanding of gender. This study uses a constructivist paradigm with a qualitative comparative case study design. We collected data through in-depth interviews and classroom observations. Participants included teachers, principals, parents or caregivers, and school staff from 6 early childhood education centers. Our research was conducted in 3 cities with different sociocultural backgrounds, Denpasar in Bali, Salatiga in Central Java, and Ternate in North Maluku. Comparing these 3 locations help us understand how culture influences gender expectation. Our first finding is that gender expectations strongly influence children's play and daily activities. Across the 3 research sites, boys and girls were often encouraged to play with different toys. Boys were expected to play with cars, balls, or construction toys. Girls were encouraged to play with dolls or cooking sets. Many parents also expressed concern when boys play with toys that were considered feminine. This suggests that play is not only seen as entertainment, but also as preparations for future gender roles. Our second finding is that gender expectations are reproduced through everyday interactions. Parents and teachers unconsciously use identity as a powerful tool for social control. For instance, girls' bodies, aesthetic, and spatial mobility are heavily regulated for modesty. Meanwhile, boys are strictly restricted from cross-gender play, largely driven by traditional gender expectations and concerns about violating established gender roles. Furthermore, educators actively utilize male figures as symbols of authority to enforce discipline, which subtly legitimize masculine power. These everyday micro-interactions continuously reproduce traditional gender inequality. Ultimately, to break this cycle, we must urgently integrate gender-responsive pedagogy into both teacher training and reflective parenting practices. Moving on to theme 3, we explore a fascinating paradox, the ambivalence towards shifting gender roles. Our data shows that parents and teachers are beginning to accept progressive gender roles, yet they still consciously reproduce traditional anxieties. For example, in Denpasar, adults praise women stepping into male-dominated roles like gamelan musicians as emancipations, but they still raise eyebrows when men take on traditional women's jobs. In Ternate, a parent tolerates her son playing with cooking toys, but only by rationalizing it towards a male-dominated public profession, saying he might become a chef. Most chefs now are men too. And very interesting, in Salatiga, a male school staff member is warmly embraced as a father figure. However, he explicitly states that he leaves all the core learning matters entirely to the female teachers. Through Butler's lens of performativity, this ambivalence is critical. It shows that even when society attempts to open up spaces for shifting roles, the foundational script, such as the belief that teachings and nurturing are naturally female duties, is still unconsciously reproduced. Finally, we arrive at theme 4, our cross-case comparison. As you can see in the table on the screen, the core mechanism of Butler's gender performativity exists across all 3 locations, but they manifest differently based on local sociocultural context. For example, if we look at gender policing, then Denpasar relies heavily on parental concern. Salatiga uses verbal discipline in classrooms, while Ternate enforces strict prohibitions in terms of body regulations. Denpasar focuses on modifying clothing for modesty. Salatiga regulates girls' sitting postures, and Ternate employs rigid behavior control. Ultimately, this comparison highlights our main conclusions. Gender expectations are reproduced through the same mechanism of social control everywhere, but the intensity and specific forms are deeply shaped by local cultural and institutional landscape. To conclude, our study shows that gender expectations are not naturally formed. They are continuously constructed through everyday interactions between parents, teachers, and children. Although sociocultural contexts influence how these expectations are expressed, adults consistently play a central role in shaping children's understanding of gender. This means that promoting gender-responsive early childhood education is not simply about changing toys or classroom decorations. It is about creating everyday learning experience that allow every child to explore, and develop freely regardless of gender stereotypes. Based on our findings, we propose for recommendations to support more inclusive early childhood educations. First, integrated gender-responsive pedagogy into teacher professional development so teachers can recognize and address gender bias in the classroom. The second, encourage reflective parenting practices as parents play a key role in shaping children's understanding of gender. The third, review school routines, classroom practice, and learning materials to reduce gender stereotypes. And finally, promote learning environment where every child can participate, explore, and develop their potential regardless of gender. We hope today's webinar has been valuable and inspiring. To stay updated on our future webinars, training programs, publications, and other ECC initiatives, please follow Xiamio Cecep on our social media platform. Visit our website and subscribe. We will be delighted to have you as part of our growing learning community. Thank you very much for your participations. And we hope to see you again at our next event. I would like to leave you with one final message. As this quote beautifully reminds us, the future belongs to those who are empowered to shape it. By giving both boys and girls equal learning opportunities, we are investing in a world where leadership, creativity, and change are not limited by gender. Thank you very much for your attention and listening. We look forward to hearing your thoughts. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Ms. Zuzaimah, for your excellent presentation. One message that particularly stayed with me is that gender should never limit a child's opportunity to learn, explore, and develop according to their own interests and potential. This presentation encourages us to reflect on our roles as adults, whether as parents, teachers, or member of the community, in ensuring that our own gender biases or assumptions do not unintentionally shape or restrict children's learning experiences. Thank you once again for sharing this valuable insight. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now arrived at our final presentation for today's webinar. It is now my privilege to introduce our third and last speaker, Dr. Suhendri, who currently serves as the Deputy Director of Administration at Xiamio CISEP. Holding a PhD in education from Hiroshima University, Dr. Suhendri has devoted his academic and professional work to advancing inclusive education. His research explores the professional development of inclusive kindergarten leaders, implementation of inclusive education, and collaboration among stakeholders to support children with diverse learning needs. Dr. Suhendri, we are looking forward to your presentation. The screen is yours.
Everyone can hear me well?
Yes, dokter.
Oke, baik. Kayaknya cuma 2 orang nih orang luar negerinya bahasa Indonesia aja ya. Aduh, agak belepotan saya kalau bahasa Inggris. Aduh. Baik. Ada orang senyum dilempar sepatu. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So, ladies and gentlemen, so it's nice to see you, Dr. Estacio. Nice to be with you here. So glad that I can hear all of your presentation. It's really nice. And then Bu Iim as well. That's your research about the gender. Wow, it's amazing. So I'm looking forward to work with you all here. Jadi gimana nih? Bahasa Indonesia bahasa Inggris nih, Bu Aula? Bu Ula? Bahasa Inggris ya? Aduh.
Ya. English lah Pak, ayo Pak.
Aduh. Aduh, lupa lagi tadi sarapan singkong lagi.
I know you already prepare your presentation slide on English Pak.
Sure ya. Baik Ibu-ibu, santai ya. Bapak Ibu sehat semuanya? Sehat? Jiwa sehat, jiwa sehat. Kalau keuangan sehat, finansial keuangan. Tanggal 22 loh ini. Udah enak. Nah, mudah-mudahan sehat semua ya. Ini nggak apa-apa. Terakhir ngantuk-ngantuk, yang penting dapat anunya sertifikatnya nanti internasional kan itu yang ditunggu-tunggu. Kalau materinya mah gampang ada di internet banyak. Baik, Ibu-ibu atas perintah Bu Aula. Waduh, Mang Dedi nggak sehat katanya. Saya harus pakai bahasa Inggris nih katanya Mang Dedi. Kumahanya mana tuh presentasi saya teh? Ah, iya tah. Dress. Iya. Terus tengah Chan. Udah kelihatan semuanya Bapak Ibu? Udah? Atuh jawab atuh sih gak ngomong sorangan saya teh. Kelihatan nggak? Udah kelihatan?
Terlihat, Pak.
Aduh,
Terlihat,
terima
Pak.
kasih Bu. Oke.
Terlihat, Pak. Terlihat.
Alhamdulillah kalau
Oh,
terlihat.
terlihat.
Iya.
Sudah
jelas.
Sudah terlihat, Pak. Sudah.
Sudah terlihat, Pak.
Sudah
Oke.
jelas, Pak.
Baik, udah ya, udah. Makasih. Oke. Saya lagi nyari slide terakhirnya Bu nih, biar langsung
Sudah terlihat nih.
ya, ucapan thank you.
Bahasa Indonesia aja ya. Boleh bahasa Sunda juga boleh.
Eta
Pakai bahasa Sunda boleh.
tak gitu mending bahasa Sundanya. Teh Bu Ula. Heeh. Nanti Bu Ula yang nerjemahin sama
Iya, Pak. Bahasa Sunda, bahasa Indonesia aja. Bahasa Indonesia aja.
All right, then. I'll just to make it between Indonesia and English. Like I'm not really good in English. My English is not as good as Bu Iim or Bu Aula. But I try, okay? Bapak Ibu kalau nggak ngerti nanti pura-pura ngerti aja ya. Jadinya minimal bisa listening bahasa Inggris, like belajar bahasa Inggris kecil-kecilan gitu. So ya biar nggak ngantuk ya. So my today's presentation is about the implementation strategy of inclusive education. Inclusive education in supporting quality education for all. So my name is Suhendri, Bapak Ibu. This is me. Yes, the most handsome person in the world. Yes. My name is Suhendri. Now kan jadi nyampur-nyampur. My name is Suhendri, and I'm as the Deputy Director of Administration in CISEP right now. Yeah, this is some of my profile, but I'll just keep it to make sure. Before we begin, I just want to have one questions for all of you. Is there anyone in this Zoom meetings feels normal? Bapak Ibu ada yang merasa normal nggak di sini? Oh, saya mah normal, cina. Ada mata, hidung, segala macam. We have everything we need, you. Is there anyone
Normal, Pak.
feels?
Normal.
Wah, keren. Well, actually, there is no single definition of normal. So everything that we have here in these words, I mean, that's like we have hands, we have eyes, we have heads, and everything. So it is just based on our perceptions. There is no single definitions which calls normal. In fact, that I believe that we have special needs. At least, for examples, like who is here that use the glass, who's the siapa di sini pakai kacamata, who's the glass. Now, at least that at that point that when you use glass and then you put off your glass and then you are not normal because you need something that to help you to see. Even someday that when you are angry with your children or your students in your classrooms, and then suddenly that's your emotions are being unstable, you are normal. Because being normal means that you have everything in control. You have everything. You're happy. And when you are angry, that you didn't have to feel angry, because if you feel angry, you are not normal. So I think that's Jadi kita semua ini gila sebenarnya. Ya, nggak ada satu definisi pun yang mengatakan kita ini normal. Semua kita berkebutuhan khusus teman-teman, Bapak Ibu semua. So it's never normal. So dengan itu maka, muncul lagi. We have another opinions. Jadi apa sebenarnya inclusive education itu? What is inclusive education actually? That's when we are not normal actually. There are at least that I feel we have three kinds of definitions that we can share with you here. In Indonesia, inclusive education about the systems. When we talk about the systems, Ibu Bapak, when we talk about the systems, it means that all of the things in your classrooms, in your schools, should support inclusive educations, which means that when you Sunday said that my classrooms or my schools are inclusive school, or my class is inclusive schools. So it means that from in the front of your classroom or front of your schools until the shopkeepers in the back of your classrooms should understand what is inclusive education. Jadi ketika bicara tentang sistem, Bapak Ibu, ini mana? Artinya semua orang yang terlibat, benda-benda, lingkungan, alam yang ada di sekitar sekolah Bapak Ibu, kelas-kelas Bapak Ibu itu harus mendukung yang namanya inclusive education. Bapak Ibu bisa bicara, wah sekolah kami pendidikan inklusi, kelas kami pendidikan inklusi. Tapi ketika tiba-tiba ada anak datang, kemudian ada tukang parkir di sana yang tidak membantu, misalnya, mohon maaf, misalnya ketika ada anak berkebutuhan khusus dalam hal ini tunadaksa, artinya dia tidak mempunyai kaki, tukang parkirnya tidak membantu, Bapak Ibu belum melaksanakan pendidikan inklusi. Not yet. Nothing at all. Oh, belum. Jadi ke Bapak Ibu ketika suatu hari Bapak Ibu bilang, sekolah saya adalah sekolah inklusi, kelas kami adalah kelas inklusi, maka penjaga sekolahnya, guru-gurunya, kepala sekolahnya, even the shopkeepers in the backyard, bahkan sampai ke penjaga kantin di belakang sekolah Bapak Ibu, itu harus mengerti yang namanya pendidikan inklusi. Nanti ketika ada anak ADHD, seumpamanya loncat-loncat, kemudian dia keluar pagar, kemudian ada security yang tidak membantu, belum inklusi. Atau ketika ada anak autis, suddenly buy something from the canteens, ketika ada anak autis berbicara di kantin, kemudian dia menggunakan uang palsu, kemudian ditolak mentah-mentah sama penjaga kantinsnya, itu belum inklusi. Belum sama sekali. So it's about the systems. When we talk about the system, everyone who support inclusive education should work together. Yang seperti Pak Dr. Estasio nyatakan di awal tadi. Lebih jauh lagi, in South Africa says that the inclusive education is about the full personal academic and professional development supports, which means that when we talk inclusive education, and you just say that we will ask our students to learn about ABC, 1 + 1 = 2, but you don't teach them how to go to the toilets, or maybe you don't know how to teach them to behave like other students. You don't, sorry to say that, you are not inclusive classroom yet. Belum sampai ke sana. Belum sampai ke sana. Kalau Bapak Ibu hanya mengajarkan tentang akademik, maka tidak. Karena menurut the South African education systems, inclusive classroom is about the personal juga, dorongan terhadap diri, kemudian akademik dan profesional sang anak. Bahkan lebih jauh, this is not about disability in a physical or mentally. It's about the gender, disability, region, preference, learning style, and language. Jadi Bapak Ibu, ketika besok Bapak Ibu sekolah di Jawa, ada orang Sunda masuk ke sekolah Bapak Ibu, kemudian Bapak Ibu nolak dengan alasan bahasa, belum inklusif. What is another definition is, saya ketemu dengan Ibu Lester ini di Jepang, dia menyatakan bahwa inclusive is about the ongoing. It's just not the end of our journey. When we talk about inclusive education, which means that it's an ongoing process. It could be 1 year, 10 years, or maybe 100 years. We have not the reach of the ends of our way. It's about how we do this inclusive education, learning by doing every day. So you don't need to say that, wow, our school is inclusive education now because we have 1 student with autism, 2 students with dyslexia and other things. No, this is not the end. It's about process. So you don't have to worry when one day you say that I don't know how to teach students with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity. It's an ongoing process. No worries. We'll come to this way. So this is the background. I will not talk about it. It will cost my time. That just believe me. That's this is there are some laws out there in the that's in the outsides of our Indonesian systems like SDGs and everything talks about inclusive education. In Indonesia, the same. That we have some policies regulates about the inclusive education. We have 1945 constitutions talking about some. Everyone has the right to have education, and law number 20 of 2003, and then we have others regulations that regulates about the inclusive classroom. Let's skip about this. You can have my presentation later. Now in our area, we have also like Pak Menteri katakan in the pendidikan bermutu, let's say to the number 7 here, you can say that layar pendidikan inklusif is one of the priorities of our minister's programs. So what is the basic concept of inclusive education, including the Balai Besar Guru Pengajar? So now BBGTK, inclusive education is educational approach. Jadi pendekatan, bukan lagi soal sistem, bukan yang sistem yang mengatur untuk sistemnya tetap mengatur untuk semua kesekolahan, tapi dalam proses pengajaran itu bukan lagi sebuah pengajaran yang prinsipnya bahwa saya akan misalnya memasukkan ini ke dalam RPP atau apa, tapi ini sebuah pendekatan. Pendekatan yang dimana semua anak itu mendapatkan kesempatan yang sama untuk belajar. Jadi saya berulang kali Bapak Ibu yang sudah sering mengikuti seminar dengan saya mengatakan bahwa prinsip dari pendidikan inklusi itu is about involvement, not about placements. Jadi pendidikan inklusi itu lebih ke arah bagaimana pelibatan. It's about the involvement of students with special needs. Anak-anak kebutuhan khusus dilibatkan dalam setiap pembelajaran, bukan penempatan. Without doing nothing. Akan sia-sia kalau hanya ada anak kebutuhan khusus, gabung sekolah Bapak Ibu, duduk di pajakan, kemudian tidak ngapa-ngapain. This is about the process of the involvement. For example, that when there is a lesson about drawings and all of the students, you want all of students to draw mountains, and one of the students of the special needs students, let's say that he has an autism, and he just say one row of lines, hanya dia menggambar satu garis, ketika anak lain menggambar gunung, you are successful teachers. Kamu adalah guru yang berhasil. You don't have to be perfect for all students because they have their own abilities. So it's about improvement. Bagaimana dengan anak-anak misalnya ketika pelajaran olahraga, anak tunadaksa dilibatkan nggak? Yang tidak punya kaki dilibatkan. Entah itu jadi wasit, entah jadi penjaga atau apa. It's about the involvement. This is point number 1. This is let's skip about this. I know I don't have much time to talk about everything. But let's see, there's one fact in Indonesia that it's so filthy and it's unfortunate that we have to face this fact that 80% of children with special needs in Indonesia lack access to education. 88% anak kebutuhan khusus Indonesia itu kurang pendidikan. Tahun 2025 loh. Bayangin. We have 1 million children with special needs. Kita punya sekitar 1 juta. And if we have 20, HCX is around 900 somethings. We have 900 students with special needs couldn't access education. Wow. It's a big problem for us. What is the problems? Here is some issues in inclusive education when we want to implement inclusive education. This is based on my dissertations and research. We have, that's Indonesia. We have a limited access. We have some schools that could, that accommodate children with special needs, but we have limited access to that ones. That the mainstream schools, some, I don't want to say all of this, or maybe most of that, let's say some, do not allow students with special needs in their schools environments. Banyak anak kebutuhan khusus itu tidak bisa gabung sekolahnya karena memang ditolak sama sekolahnya. Bagaimana tidak ditolak? Karena guru-gurunya belum paham bagaimana cara menanganinya. Bagaimana guru-guru belum paham cara menanganinya? Kalau mereka tidak dapat pelatihan. Ya kan? Pak, sekarang masuk sekolah anak misalnya kebutuhan, misalnya satu anak misalnya disleksia misalnya. Hari Bapak Ibu, itu bahasa Sunda deh. Bapak Ibu belum tahu cara melatihnya. Kata pemerintah mah harus terima di sekolah mah bukan diajar disleksia, malah tambah jadi ADHD, malah tambah banyak nanti kebutuhannya. I know some problems. Jadi Bapak Ibu jangan khawatir misalnya, wah betul ini pemerintah tuh. Ah, nggak usah nyalain pemerintah juga. Bapak Ibu punya akses sekarang, punya akses internet, punya ChatGPT, punya segala macam. You can learn everything about it. Even that, you can ask some of your colleagues, or maybe kita punya program namanya Sumber Belajar, di mana sekolah-sekolah SL terdekat seharusnya menjadi orang-orang yang menjadi kolega Bapak Ibu untuk bisa mencari inspirasi atau sekedar datang ke sekolah Bapak Ibu untuk menemani Bapak Ibu mengajar anak berkhusus. I have no idea that as far as I know, this program has been stopped right now. But you can do that as well as that. I believe that not everyone could concern about money. As long as we say that we need your help. We have special needs in our classrooms now. Please come to our schools. Please teach me how to teach them. Why not? Or you can call the education district, dinas pendidikan. Pak, katanya punya ini mau membantu apa? This is one of examples. Tapi ketika Bapak Ibu sudah nyerah duluan, saya tidak bisa apa-apa, saya anaknya nggak bertutur khusus pola orang pulang ke rumah juga ini bisa 10 jam tidur saking pusingnya, sudah. When you want to take one of students with special needs in your classrooms, so the main things is your heart, penerimaan hati. Aduh, gaya saya kayak Ustadz. Ya betul Bapak Ibu. Karena ketika hati sudah nerima, Bapak Ibu, everything will be easy. Everything will be easy. You can take everything, the challenges, the obstacles, and everything. No need to worry. You can learn by yourself. You can ask an expert as well. Like we have limited skills, knowledge, attitudes as well. Sama juga kayak di sini the crucial principle, kepala sekolahnya nggak menerima, atau misalnya, atau yang tak kalah pentingnya, misalnya yang terjadi adalah ke level orang tuanya. Nah ini yang biasanya akan Ibu tanyakan. Orang tuanya kan kadang-kadang mereka memang nggak mau sekolahkan karena beberapa kondisi, ada yang malu, atau mereka itu ekspektasinya tinggi. Anak kebutuhan khusus gabung ke sekolah biasa, ekspektasinya tuh mereka teh sembuh. Aduh, pengennya teh anak autis teh pulang dari TK teh langsung masuk SD itu langsung jadi juara 1. Berat emang tugas di Indonesia ini. Karena selain kita berhadapan dengan murid, siswa, orang tua juga ada kadang ekspektasinya tinggi. Nanti kita belajar bagaimana caranya. I know that 20 minutes will not enough for us, but let's talk about this. So this is the goals of the year to provide inclusive education. I'll skip it about it, no worries. And then I'll skip about the principle as well. Intinya bahwa kita semua tuh pokoknya kalau prinsip pendidikan inklusi itu Bapak Ibu adalah menerima anak kebutuhan khusus gabung di sekolah biasa. Nah ini contohnya nih. Contoh penerapan praktek baiklah yang bisa saya. Kita lihat ya.
Aku nggak suka belajar sambil duduk. Aku suka jalan-jalan, tapi aku suka belajar.
Setiap anak berhak memperoleh pendidikan tanpa perbedaan, termasuk anak dengan disabilitas.
Aku tutup kuping, bukan nggak mau dengar ama Bu Guru, karena aku nggak tahan dengar soal teman-teman yang ribut.
Aku kurang suka pelajaran matematika, aku lebih suka membaca sama main basket. Bu Guru, aku nggak bisa melihat, tapi aku tetap ingin belajar.
Di sekolah inklusif, kami para guru paham bahwa anak-anak berkebutuhan khusus mempunyai potensi untuk dikembangkan. Hanya saja cara belajar mereka yang berbeda.
Perbedaan dalam proses belajar bukan halangan untuk mengembangkan potensi. Sekolah inklusif, sekolah untuk semua anak.
Mana presentasi tadi? Aduh, leungit geuningan. Ayat. Nah, sudah kelihatan lagi Bapak Ibu? Aduh, Bapak Ibu sudah kelihatan lagi?
Sudah, Bapak.
Aduh, ya ngecek doang padahalnya saya juga udah kelihatan. Bapak Ibu bisa takut tidur. Yang penting dapat sertifikat katanya. Baik Bapak Ibu. So now I just want to skip it a little bit. So saya pengen Bapak Ibu semuanya cerita, tapi saya yakin nggak akan ada waktu. Bapak Ibu, saya punya satu pertanyaan menarik. Bapak Ibu if you have children with special needs, I mean that not special needs, I mean that's satu kekurangan lah. Jadi gini, saya kita bahasa Indonesia aja. Bapak Ibu ketika ada anak ibu-ibu lah sekarang nih, nggak usah anak orang lain. Dia tidak bisa bahasa Inggris, tapi dia hebat main basket. Bapak Ibu pengen dia ikut les apa?
Les basket.
Oh yes, betul ya. Semoga ya. Karena yang terjadi di Indonesia, what happens in Indonesia, that's with our children could not do some things, so we push them, we force them, even that we encourage them widely and even that strongly to learn about it. Anak kita nggak bisa matematika, dilesin matematika, wah mati-matian segala macam. Padahal dia punya potensi di bidang olahraga, dia punya potensi di bidang lain. Itu yang tidak kita kembangkan, yang tidak kita asah. You know that, not everyone. Sama seperti Bapak Ibu lah sekarang, sok, ayo nak. Kalau nggak percaya Bapak Ibu misalnya ngajarin anak harus semua bisa. Bapak Ibu sekarang saya paksa suruh belajar algoritma, mau nggak? Bisa nggak? Seminggu harus sudah beres, bisa ngerjakan soal SBMPTN misalnya. Hari anak-anak kita paksa suruh belajar semuanya, hari kitanya. Itu sama seperti anak kita. Everyone is the same, Bapak Ibu, semuanya sama kita itu. Anak-anak juga sama, apalagi anak kebutuhan khusus. We try to make, anak kebutuhan khusus itu kebutuhannya cuma 3, Bapak Ibu. Pertama itu independensi. Sorry, independency. So I'll talk in English. Sorry, this is international seminars. Sorry, Bu Aula. Independency, it means that children with special needs just need to be independent by his own or her own. I mean that he could learn, he could go to the bedrooms, he could open his clothes and then bedroom everything. This one, independent dulu, mandiri dulu. Itu, yang lainnya nomor sekian. Yang kedua adalah yang dibutuhkan anak-anak adalah kemampuan dasar untuk bertahan hidup, survival namanya. Artinya kemampuan bertahan hidup ini, kalau misalnya ada bahaya, ada apa-apa, dia tahu apa yang dia lakukan. Ada gempa, ada apa, misalnya itu apa. Itu dulu mandiri, kemampuan yang terakhir baru bersosialisasi. Udah, Bapak Ibu jangan sok-sokan ngajarin ini itu pengen anak bisa, wah, pengen anak bisa segala macamnya. No. Bapak Ibu, anak kebutuhan khusus itu ruso, insya Allah. Ruso itu ada keringanan. Bapak Ibu tuh insya Allah mereka mah ahli-ahli sorga, kita ini aja yang pendosa, yang pengen ngajarin sok-sok anak bisa serba ini, serba itu. Mereka tuh bisa mandiri, bisa apa, insya Allah yang lainnya mengikuti. Oke, banyak sih hal. Oke. Duh, saya jadi kemana-mana. So, implements inclusive classrooms in a regular source, there are so many benefits that children could learn. First, of course, the human rights are fulfilled, and based on the evidence, menurut penelitian bahwa anak-anak kebutuhan khusus kalau gabung sekolah biasa itu mereka tuh akan lebih hebat. They feel so achievements. Mereka ada lebih banyak prestasi lah gitu, dan merasa dihargai. Kemudian juga secara mental dan segala macamnya, program-program yang terbagus itu, mereka bisa mempelajari lebih banyak. Student with special needs learn best in development and improvement schools. Sedikit lagi ya, Bu Laula ya. Ini beberapa kurikulum yang bisa Bapak Ibu terapkan di sekolah anak kebutuhan khusus. Akselerasi. Acceleration is about the programs. Jadi anak-anak ini untuk anak-anak yang gifted. Jadi anak-anak yang misalnya, dulu kita punya programnya namanya kelas percepatan gitu. Jadi misalnya anak kelas 1 bisa sampai kelas 3 gitu karena sudah baik. Kemudian duplications is about the curriculums and everything that you need by generally by non-student with special needs. Jadi anak-anak sama dengan belajar anak yang lain. Atau kurikulum yang modifikasi, simplification application, atau diganti. Sampar. Tapi yang paling penting Bapak Ibu, inti dari semua jenis kurikulum untuk anak kebutuhan khusus ini satu. Bahwa penyesuaian. Apa Bapak Ibu? Penyesuaian, adaptations, it depends on students with special needs. Jadi Bapak Ibu tidak bisa memaksa anak-anak harus punya KKM segini, anak segala macam, enggak. Anak-anak kebutuhan khusus itu tidak punya KKM. Iya, bisa jadi untuk anak kebutuhan khusus yang misalnya rendah atau apa. Mereka akan punya KKM tersendiri untuk bisa ini, tapi secara general tidak. Yang penting mereka sesuaikan dengan tadi, independensi mereka, survival skills mereka, dan sosial mereka. Ini bisa yang support yang bisa, misalnya kalau di dalam kelas itu seperti apa, gunakan use visual aids untuk anak ini untuk semuanya ya. Misalnya untuk beberapa instruksi yang dalam kelas, kalau Bapak Ibu anak punya kebutuhan khusus, gunakan instruksinya visual, harus bergambar atau apa, beberapa strategi ini contohnya. Kemudian juga kalau pengen jelasin sesuatu itu harus berulang-ulang. Kemudian juga jangan lupa di facilities juga berguna, segala macam interesting. Pokoknya everything apply different. Instruksinya juga harus beragam, tidak bisa satu. Anak kebutuhan khusus juga bisa jadi. Ketika disuruh bikin lingkaran, anak kebutuhan khusus tidak bisa, Bapak Ibu harus bantu. Support yang saya bilang tadi, Bapak Ibu Bapak Ibu bila perlu, wah saya nggak punya, we don't have much money, to misalnya to invite the psychologs or anything. You can invite helpers, other teachers or students or even there's just ask some, the parents from the students parents. Jadi anak-anak gurunya anak-anak siapa tahu dia bisa bantu dalam kelas. Artinya bisa Bapak Ibu tidak harus memanggil psikolog segala macam. Juga ini segala macam media segala macam, hati-hati menggunakan media. Ini banyak, waktu saya cuma 15 menit 20 menit. Ini banyak, satu slide ini bisa kita jelaskan sampai 20 menitan. Gunakan pensil-pensil yang panjang, Play-Doh segala macam untuk membantu anak-anak. Dengan pendengarannya kurang, Bapak Ibu harus menempatkan dia duduk di depan. Anak-anak dengan misalnya ADHD aktif, dia harus ditempatkan di tengah-tengah anak-anak yang lain, biar tidak dia dekat dinding atau apa. Karena anak ADHD itu rawan terhadap hal-hal yang berbau misalnya keras-keras gitu. Misalnya runcingnya meja or everything. Kemudian juga anak-anak juga yang misalnya active learning segala macam juga Bapak Ibu sesuaikan kurikulumnya. Kita ini contoh beberapa hal yang bisa Bapak Ibu lakukan. Nanti saya share aja ininya materinya. Ini bisa juga transition area harus punya bagaimana ini contohnya area ini saya pakai bantuan AI untuk mendramatisir keadaannya seperti apa. Ini kita harus punya yang namanya, kalau Bapak Ibu di sekolahnya, jadi misal lagi. In your classroom that you have, that's students with ADHD. Saya penderita ADHD, Bapak Ibu. Jadi ketika saya penderita ADHD, saya membutuhkan yang namanya calming corner. Calming corner itu tempat, there's some place that you can calm yourself. So it's a kind of like a soft questions. Jadi ada bantal khusus, tempat duduk atau apa, duduk di sini. Kemudian mempelajari breathe in, breathe out, segala macam. Juga managing areanya seperti ini. Kemudian juga harus ada sensory play areanya. Kemudian juga hal-hal lain yang bertepatan untuk mendukung seperti ini. Pokoknya banyak hal Bapak Ibu. Jadi Bapak Ibu, sebenarnya Bapak Ibu kalau cuma teori-teori, I believe that all about the theories, concepts, and everything about the text, you have mastered it. Bapak Ibu sudah menguasai. Tapi, oke, Pak, kami sudah tahu nih Pak. So, how do I teach special student? Bapak Ibu, jadi bagaimana sih sebenarnya mengajarkan anak kebutuhan khusus? Nah, Bapak Ibu, tunggu serialnya. Saya sedang nyusun bukunya. Nah, ini contoh bukunya. Nanti ada buku panduan praktis pembelajaran pendidikan inklusi di TK. Jadi Bapak Ibu tidak usah repot-repot nanti kalau buku ini, mudah-mudahan doain ya kalau buku ini terbit nanti dibantu nih sama yang ada di sini juga di chatroom, kayaknya ada Bu Rita nih, ada Bu Nopi juga, Bu ini nanti bantuin. Jadi Bapak Ibu sudah punya panduannya nanti. Bagaimana sih kalau anak tunarungu, gimana cara ngajarinnya, metodenya seperti apa, aktivitasnya seperti apa, tunadaksa seperti apa gitu kalau Bapak Ibu. But ini for next lah. Kita akan pelajari ini kalau nanti buku ini selesai, nanti kita langsung ke bentuknya itu workshop aja jadi ini. Kalau sekarang mah ngobrol-ngobrol aja dulu. Ini jurnal saya lagi. Aduh, kumaha ya caranya teh? Oh, di dia. Benar. Nah, ini Bapak Ibu, saya tahu Bapak Ibu some challenges, beberapa kendala yang Bapak Ibu akan hadapi. Pertama tentang itu tadi, masalah hati, kemudian juga masalah persepsi, kemudian juga masalah kemampuan Bapak Ibu untuk menyiapkan anak kebutuhan khusus itu secara maksimal. Ini beberapa support system yang Bapak Ibu bisa gunakan, tentu saja pemerintah, at this point that we do needs government's role. At least that's for all teachers here, that schools, government should accommodate what we call as professional development. Apa yang kita sebut dengan pendidikan, pelatihan. Jadi kan pelatihan ini Bapak Ibu sudah belajar bagaimana caranya segala macam. Nah, kita lagi support ini Bapak Ibu, jadi kita juga tidak diam. Kami di lembaga Singoci Chat ini sedang berusaha, beberapa penelitian kita sedang kembangkan, termasuk advokasi ke pemerintah agar program-program pelatihan. Kemarin kami ketemu Pak Gogot juga, ketemu dengan Pak Saipul, biasanya dengan Pak Kurniawan yang ada di atas sana untuk Bapak Ibu mendapatkan pelatihan tentang pendidikan inklusi ini. Kemudian juga komunitas juga Bapak Ibu tidak bisa berdiri sendiri. Ketika komunitasnya Bapak Ibu mendirikan sekolah, pendidikan inklusi, maka besok-besok Bapak Ibu ajak itu kepala desanya, ke sekolah Bapak Ibu, lihat nih ada pendidikan khusus. Jadi tidak ada yang namanya bullying ketika nanti ada anak kebutuhan khusus di jalan, tiba-tiba ada yang ngeherian, itu naonnya. Ada yang nyandain, ada yang ngusilin gitu. Itu nggak boleh terjadi. Makanya ajak komunitas. Sorry, belepotan bahasa Indonesia. Kemudian juga orang tuanya. Bagaimana peran orang tua di sini? Tadi Bu Dr. Helmiah, kalau nggak salah, Helmiah tadi bertanya di grup chat tadi itu. Saya sempat baca dari sini. Bagaimana sih peran orang tua di sana misalnya? Betul, ada yang jawab tadi. Yang pertama itu ada beberapa hal yang bisa kita lakukan terhadap orang tua. Kalau yang paling penting itu komunikasi. Komunikasi contohnya, saya langsung ke teknis, adalah bikin buku penghubung khusus untuk orang tua dan anak. Apa sih orang tua ingin harapkan dan apanya? Biasanya yang saya terapkan di sekolah-sekolah itu adalah si sekolah-sekolah inklusi itu, sebelum pertama anak bagus masuk, kita panggil dulu orang tuanya. Panggil, benar-benar dipanggil. Kalau orang tuanya nggak datang, mending nggak usah sekolah sana. Seriously. Kalau orang tuanya datang, nggak sekolah, kita serius. Ini anaknya mau diapain nih? Apa harapannya atau apanya? Dan kita bikin harapan bersama. Kita bikin harapan bersama artinya anak ini mau diapain dan disesuaikan dengan apa yang sekolah punya. Tidak serta-merta si orang tua pengen ekspektasinya tinggi, tapi gurunya tidak mampu begitu, nanti jadi Bapak Ibu dibully di akhirnya kok nggak mampu nih. Datang orang tuanya, jelaskan bahwa ini. Nggak ada orang yang bisa menjelaskan tentang betul khusus, ada AA. Nanti gabung misalnya ada panggil kepala dinasnya atau siapanya orang yang kompeten untuk menjelaskan itu. Takutnya Bapak Ibu cuma ngarang, ini mah gurunya aja malas nggak mau ngajar anak saya. Katanya, Bapak bisa manggil praktisi atau apa. Yang kedua betul, yang bisa Bapak Ibu lakukan adalah misalnya melakukan penghubungan atau apa. Dan yang ketiga, Bapak Ibu bisa sekali-sekali ngundang sang guru itu ikut mengajar. Seminggu 2 kali misalnya guru ikut ke dalam kelas untuk memantau guru lagi orang tua datang ke dalam kelas observe, datang ke orang tua ini loh keadaan kayak gini-gini, jadi mereka tahu, mohon maaf ya, mereka tahu misalnya struggle-nya Bapak Ibu, how you struggle about students with special needs in your classrooms. It's not as easy as they can see. Mereka cuma mikirnya dapat ini dapat itu. Dan yang terakhir adalah yang biasa Bapak Ibu lakukan terhadap orang tua ada namanya evaluasi bersama. Evaluasi bersama itu artinya ketika misalnya 3 bulan atau 6 bulan datang bersama. Bila perlu Bapak Ibu, kalau Bapak Ibu sekolah Ibu Bapak Ibu sedikit punya uang, itu bisa mendatangkan psikolog untuk mendatang bersama-sama melakukan evaluasi bersama terhadap anaknya. Anak saya juga kebetulan menderita ADHD, biasanya setiap 6 bulan itu ada psikolognya yang datang dan orang tuanya juga diundang dan itu bagus. Jadi ekspektasinya sama-sama gitu. Tapi ada hal-hal lain saya we'll talk about it later about parents. Ada banyak hal-hal yang bisa ini. Kemudian juga education unit here. Let's see, ini kepala sekolahnya bagaimana sekolah berperan penting. Juga guru-gurunya, Bapak Ibu tidak bisa sendirian. Kalau ke Bapak Ibu, sekarang Bapak Ibu, okay. You say that I'm competent enough to teach student with special needs. But ketika di rumahnya tidak seimbang dengan apa yang dikatakan sekolah, nah, it will not happen. Ketika kepala sekolahnya juga tidak melakukan yang sama. Dia pindah sekolah juga sama. Kemudian juga yang tak kalah penting adalah kasih tahu ke anak-anak sekolahnya, anak ini istimewa. Percuma Bapak Ibu melakukan hal-hal yang baik ketika teman-temannya masih berharap dia seusia namanya anak TK ya. Kan di TK kan. Dia nggak akan ngerti yang namanya, oh anak ini butuh khusus atau apa. Bapak Ibu tugasnya ngasih pengertian. Bagaimana cara ngasih pengertiannya? Ikut dilibatkan. Bagaimana cara ngasih pengertiannya? Bapak Ibu kasih help tutors. Help tutors itu kayak gini. Jadi Bapak Ibu misalnya punya satu anak kebutuhan khusus, setiap hari itu bergantian anak yang mendampinginya. Ini udah strategi sih sebenarnya, mendampinginya. Jadi dia tahu, oh seperti ini, nanti lama-lama pejabat giliran. Alright, I know time is enough. Sorry, kalau diingatkan. Ketika juga OSISMA untuk yang nantinya. So I think I'll come to the end of my presentation. So I just want to have one single question. Is education for all is really for all? Ketika sebenarnya apakah benar-benar sudah semuanya? Apakah masih ada orang luar sana ini? Let's see. Alright, that's this all more presentations today. This is my reference and thank you. Terima kasih atur nuhun. Tadi karena ada orang Filipina, selamat po Pak Dokter, and ada orang India juga. Syukriya. Terima kasih. Back to you, Bu Ulfa. Oke, atur nuhun.
Thank you so much, Dr. Suhendri. Actually, Dr. Suhendri, presentation could be ini ya, independent course ya, bisa buat kuliah sendiri nih, mata pelajaran sendiri.
Ya, sama Bu Pipi lah, kan dosennya Ibu bareng-bareng gitu. Dosennya Bu Ulfa.
Thank you. Personally, Pak Suhendri, I must say that I personally truly agree with your statement that there is no such thing as normal person ya, because each of us is weird in our different ways. I also believe that we are special needs The difference is only that maybe some more visible than others and need more support than the others. Another important takeaway for me is that when supporting children with special needs, our focus should go beyond academic achievement. We should strive to help them develop independence, meaningful participation, and the life skill they need to thrive in their communities alone, by themselves. Once again, thank you very much, Pak Suhendi. We have now arrived at the question and answer section, but I'm so sorry, due to our limited time, we will be able to accommodate up to 3 questions ya, Bapak Ibu. Jadi karena waktunya terbatas, kita hanya bisa akomodasi 3 pertanyaan, 1 question for each presenter, maybe ya. So let's open the chat. Okay, there is 1 question from Dr. Helwiah Makarim, MPD. I think this question was for Dr. Randall, ya. Dr. Helwiah, can you confirm?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Dr. Helwiah. So, Dr. Randall, I will read you the questions. There are actually 2 questions from Dr. Helwiah. Okay, good afternoon. My name is Dr. Helwiah Makarim, MPD, lecturer at Universitas Muhammadiyah Bogor Raya, Umbara. My questions are: 1. What strategies can educators use to build strong partnerships with parents of children with diverse needs? And 2. In what ways can authentic learning experiences promote inclusion in early childhood classrooms? Dr. Randall, can you
Hello,
answer
good
this question?
afternoon. Can you repeat the question, please?
First question is, what strategies can educators use to build strong partnership with parents of children with diverse needs? And the second question is, in what ways can authentic learning experiences promote inclusion in early childhood classroom?
Okay, so for the first question, strategies between educators and parents, so collaboration is very important. I think that link is somehow not yet given emphasis in the education realm. So I think the first strategy is that we have to establish good rapport with the parents instead of pushing them away. We have to have a welcoming we call this welcoming action towards them. So whenever they ask for the performance of their children, we have to cater them or we have to address them properly, because I observe some of the parents are rather some of the teachers are afraid to talk with the parents. So I think first thing to do is they need to develop rapport with the parents, especially parents of their students. Also, I know most of the parents are eager to communicate with the teacher, especially concerning concerning with their child, especially their performances, learning development. So another thing is maybe they can organize a meeting at least once a month with parents, so that to give updates with the performance of the students, aside from the regular parent-teacher meeting. So here in the Philippines, we have that parent-teacher meeting every quarter. So maybe they can schedule once a month meeting with the parents, or maybe they can also create a group chat. I think we can maximize technology in terms of communicating with the parents so that we can strengthen our communication with them. I believe that open communication with parent is very important. So we have to work together to help our children, especially those who are in needs, no? For ways of authentic uh, assessment or experience, rather, experiences, just like what I have mentioned, in our university, we are very active in collaborating with our community. So I think when we send our students to community, they experience really authentic experience. They experience authentic training because they um, met different kinds of children from different walks of life as well with different needs. So maybe that's a good practice. We do not keep our students in our classroom, even though like here in our university, we are not just contented with the subject that requires them to go out. Instead, we incorporate this learning, service learning to every subject. So that's why they have more opportunities and experiences. And I think that would be one of the good good strategy or ways on how we let our students to experience authentic teaching engagement or experiences. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Estacio, for your answer. Now we move on to the second question. Actually, the second question is directed for Pak Henry. The question is originally in Bahasa Indonesia. I will read it in Bahasa Indonesia and English, so Dr. Estacio can also hear the question. For the Bahasa Indonesia version, dari Ibu Susanti Trisniarti, izin bertanya pada Bapak Suhendri, bagaimana memaksimalkan pendidikan inklusif? Kami berharap ada dukungan mitra ahli, seperti halnya pengawasan pelaksanaan pendidikan dari institusi pemerintah untuk lembaga, agar guru dapat berkonsultasi permasalahan ABK secara berkelanjutan. So, in English, the question is, how can we strengthen the implementation of inclusive education? Teachers hope to receive ongoing support from expert or partner institution, so they have opportunities to consult on challenges related to children with special educational needs. What would you recommend to build this kind of sustainable support system?
Jawab atau apa nih, Bu? Atau udah ngobrol aja? So sorry, Estacio, that I just want to make sure that everyone understands in Bahasa, and also some of my friends from India. I'm sorry that's about the language barrier. Doctor, maybe I will talk a little bit in Indonesia and a little bit in English. Is it okay for you, Pak Dr. Estacio? Okay, thank you so much. I think that some of Philippines language is almost the same like Indonesian, right?
Yes, we have some common words.
Yes, I know. Yes, that's nice. All right, then. So the question is about how to maximize the inclusive educations. Well, actually, of course, it is so close, but it's about collaborations. You cannot do it by yourself. I mean, that's by yourself or by your. I mean, that's a single schools or classrooms. It should be about the collaborations. It's collaboration about schools, parents, even governments, and even this. I mean, that's experts. I mean, it's even for you that you are not an expert of inclusive education or you are not a specialist in the students with special needs. That you could have a kind of access to get I mean, that's supports from the government. I give you one example. Like I said to you before, that's actually that the government has a programs in Indonesia. We call it like Sumber Belajar. We call it learning centers, where every special needs in the regions, I mean, sekolah-sekolah SMP yang ada di kota atau misalnya di kabupaten itu harus menjadi sumber belajar. Artinya, ketika menjadi sumber belajar, so it means that you can have some advice or everything that you need from them. If you don't have kind of that, that kind of health, then you can ask the districts, dinas pendidikan to help you. Ada bagian khusus, bagian namanya bagian GTK. Bagian GTK itu di pendidikan itu, katanya guru dan tenaga pendidikan. Nah, di guru tenaga pendidikan itu bermacam-macam. Sini ada Pak Edi dari Kartara nih, kayaknya udah pindah-pindah Pak Edi, kata ada dinas pendidikan dulunya. So we have kind of that, we can have that access to help you. I mean that's it is true that you can do it by yourselves. Pemerintah bisa pendidikan inklusif. Setahu ini juga Bapak Ibu sebenarnya kalau Bapak Ibu paham, sekarang ada program, there is a program from governments yang sudah di launching, it has been launched sekitar 3 bulan yang lalu oleh Bu Rita SKM, staf ahli menteri. Beliau tuh staf ahli menteri di bidang pendidikan inklusif. Itu beliau sudah bersama dengan Dirjen GTK Bu Prof Nunuk sudah meluncing namanya program pendidikan inklusi internasional. Bapak Ibu bisa akses di sana. Bapak Ibu, you can have an access to get the programs. In Indonesia, sorry brothers from India or from Philippines or from others. Indonesia, we have now that we are trying our best to improve teachers' competencies in inclusive education. Now we have a national programs called teachers' competencies improvements. And it has been launched by the Minister of Education Indonesia is around 2 or 3 months ago, and everyone could could register theirs. Bu Rita mungkin tahu program ini, Bu Rita Nurunisa tahu program ini ya, yang program peloncingan itu. Tahu nggak Bu? Launching yang program ini pemerintah itu.
Ya, tahu yang ini Pak, yang terbaru untuk pendidikan inklusif,
Yes.
pendidikan inklusif berbagai yang perjenjang sampai mahir.
Yes.
Itu kan. Ya.
Yes. Nah, betul. Thank you Bu Rita. Ini Bu Rita selalu ikut terus deh. Kayaknya nggak tahu nih kenapa nih. Nggak tahu. Apa pasti. Jadi gini Bapak Ibu, jadi ada program pendidikan inklusif. So this is your opportunities for all teachers here, especially in the kindergartens. You could register yourself there, and then you can get from the beginner and intermediate until advanced. So this is just make the most of this opportunity. Nanti kalau Bu Rita ada linknya untuk register atau apanya nanti bisa dikirim di chat ya Bu ya. Coba cari Bu di ininya. Nanti bisa dikirim di grup chat nanti. Itu bisa Bapak Ibu untuk memaksimalkan tadi itu. Memaksimalkan pendidikan inklusi. Because the most important thing that you have to know how to deal with special needs. Apart from that is okay. That's it. Mungkin Bu Siti mungkin mau menambahkan something.
Okay, thank you, Mas Wendy. Actually, there is one question that directed to Bu Imah. The question is, questionnya regarding the ambivalence towards shifting gender roles. The data shows that adults are somewhat accepting of women taking on masculine roles, but they are highly anxious about boys taking on feminine roles. Why do you think this specific double standard is so deeply rooted across this region? Participants in Bahasa Indonesia, the question is mengenai ambivalensi tentang pergeseran gender roles ini ya. Kenapa kalau perempuan mengambil pekerjaan laki-laki itu disebut emansipasi, sementara kalau laki-laki mengambil pekerjaan perempuan itu masih banyak orang tua yang cemas tentang dalam tanda kutip kemaskulinitasan laki-laki tersebut. Kenapa ya ada double standard tersebut? Oke. Bu Siti Zaimah, the line is yours.
Thank you, Mbak Mula, for the questions. This double standard comes from the way society views boys and girls differently. We learn from a young age what is considered appropriate for each gender, and these expectations are reinforced by our families, schools, and communities. Our findings shows an interesting pattern when girls do activities that are usually associated with boys. People often see it as confidence or progress. However, when boys do activities that are seen as feminine, such as playing with dolls or cooking toys, many parents become worried because they think it doesn't not fit the image of a boy. This shows that we still place higher value on masculine roles than feminine ones. As a result, many children are discouraged from exploring their own interests simply because of um, gender expectations. Uh, that's it, Mbak Ula.
Oke, setuju Mbak Imah. So because the gender roles ya Mbak Imah ya. Okay, thank you so much for the speakers for your answers. And we are very sorry because there are actually some more questions, but we don't have any more time to spare. So I will close the question and answer session here. Before we conclude today's webinar, we would like to express our heartfelt appreciation to our distinguished speakers for sharing their expertise and inspiring perspective with us today. As a token of our gratitude, Siamio CSAP is pleased to present the certificate of appreciation to each of our speakers. May I invite the committee to kindly display the certificates on the screen? Okay, thank you, Dr. Randall Di Estacio, for your inspiring presentation. And then the second is Pak Suhendri. Thank you for your thought-provoking presentation also, Bapak. And for Ms. Siti Huzaimah, thank you for the insightful presentation. Okay, and appreciation also for me. So on behalf of Siam UCSF, thank you, Dr. Randall Di Estacio, Dr. Suhendri, and Ms. Siti Huzaimah for your outstanding contributions to today's webinar. We truly appreciate your time, knowledge, and commitment to advancing inclusive early childhood education. Congratulations to our participants, and thank you once again. Okay, I would also like to express my sincere appreciation to all participants for your active engagement throughout the webinar. We hope today's discussion has strengthened our collective commitment to ensuring that every child, regardless of their background or circumstances, has access to quality and inclusive early childhood education. I actually learned pantun Bapak in English. Multi-language pantun.
Cakep. Kok belum?
Belum, Pak.
Belum.
I learned it from Pak Rizal yesterday, actually. The roses are red, the violet are blue. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much.
Cakep.
Masih pemula ya
Udah
Pak
selesai.
ini pantunnya.
Selamat Po. Selamat Po.
Yo, I would like to hand the
Thank
session
you.
back to our master of ceremony, Nazlah.
Okay, thank you very much for Mr. Lahaula for moderating today's session. And I would also express our sincere appreciation to our distinguished speaker, Dr. Randall B. Estacio, Bapak Suhendri PhD, dan Siti Huzaimah MPD for sharing their valuable knowledge, experiences, and insights on inclusive early childhood education. But before we conclude this session, we would like to take a moment to capture some screenshots for documentation purposes. So we kindly ask all participants to turn on their cameras and join us on screen. Untuk Bapak dan Ibu dimohon untuk membuka kameranya karena kami akan melakukan sesi dokumentasi. Untuk tim dokumentasi dimohon untuk screenshot ya. 1, 2, 3.
Selamat Mei. Terima kasih.
Aiwan, makasih.
Dimohon untuk berposisi. 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you so much. We hope today's discussion on inclusive early childhood education, leaving no child behind, has provided meaningful perspective and practical insight that can contribute to strengthening inclusive early childhood education across Southeast Asia and beyond. We'll also like to invite you to join the next webinar in Siamio CSEP 9th Anniversary Webinar Series, which will be held on Thursday, 23 July 2026. Under the theme Pengasuhan Anak di Tengah Perubahan Zaman. We look forward to welcoming you again. And kindly note that e-certificates for participants will be available starting from 29 July 2026. Detailed information on how to access and download your certificate will be shared through Siamio CSEP's official communication channel. We would also appreciate it if you could take a few minutes to complete the webinar feedback and attendance form. Your feedback is highly valuable and will help us to improve the quality of our future programs. The feedback form link has been shared on the screen. And once again, thank you for joining us today and for being part of the celebration of the 9th anniversary of Siamio CSEP. My name is Nazal Fania. Have a wonderful day, stay safe, and we look forward to welcoming you to our future programs. Good afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.